This is our non-spoiler review of Superman. Alan, your review on the website is about to hit, but you can give us your thoughts. Why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, you want to talk about the plot or no?
69.
Okay, so basically Superman, we start in the middle of the action. Superman has been beaten by the hammer of something, Baravia. He has been flung to the Antarctic. You've seen it, all seen it. He's laying there in the ice. Krypto comes along, rescues him. He goes back to the Fortress of Solitude, heals up real fast, and then gets back into the action, only to be taken down again by the hammer of Baravia. And he leaves, and basically Superman's in a whole bunch of trouble. And the prime problem, the prime trouble that Superman is in is he stopped a war. He just went out, decided that war is bad, and he just stopped the war. And it had geopolitical ramifications. And now Lex Luthor is scheming behind the scenes to not only destroy Superman, but destroy his reputation and be done with Superman once and for all, for, of course, nefarious reasons. Lois is there. Superman, he's now dating Lois, and they're keeping it hush hush. And they have a fight, and the fight kind of surrounds whether Superman should have stopped the war, and so they kind of take some time off, and bad things happen to Superman throughout the rest of the film. I guess that's the best way I can explain it without getting too spoilery.
Well, yeah, no spoilers.
You have anything to add?
No, we really don't want to go over too much of the story for a non-spoiler. But I'll just say this. This is a very, very different Superman. And it will be divisive. I don't think it'll be divisive in a bad way. It'll be divisive in the sense that everyone is going to nitpick something from this movie. While I had fun watching it, I have so many nitpicks of things that didn't work for me because the tone of this is very Silver Age. In terms of its goofiness, of course, we knew it would be that when we saw Krypto the dog show up in the very first trailer. We get Krypto. And it's a goofy, fanciful, whimsical, very comic book inspired Superman. This is a Superman that is going to be very jarring, because in the same way that like Zack Snyder had an original score, it was epic. It was far more serious. There was very little humor to speak of. It was grounded in realism. This is the exact opposite on almost every level. In terms of, there's humor in almost every scene. Some of it lands, some of it does not. I'd say Gunn is 50-50 or less in terms of humor that lands. But when it's in the zone and working, it's very good. What Gunn is almost afraid to get serious. And that's what I like about, look, to be clear, I like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I think it's aged well. That also has problems that have been nitpicked as well, including should Superman kill? In this is a very good Superman, almost like to the point of being like corny. He's sort of corny sense of being good. I mean, he saves kids. He saves a squirrel in one scene.
He blows a dog.
He protects a dog by using his super breath to move the dog from one dangerous location to another. Some might phrase it differently, but that's how I say it. In any case,
how you say it now, but yeah, go ahead.
Anyways, this is the Superman of the, when you would see the goofy comic book covers, you were like, that Superman comic looks stupid. Well, guess what? That's what this movie is. So you're going to either buy into it or not. I'll tell you the things I liked, and then I'll tell you things that didn't work. I like James Gunn unhinged. He is not shackled by Marvel. The women, in particular, the way women are allowed to be sexy. They wear mini skirts, high heels, and we
Tight
saw
shirts.
cleavage from multiple female characters. Awesome. That's great. Because what's weird is in the Marvel films, they desexualize all the women. Then those same women show up on the red carpet dressed super sexy. Gunn allows his female characters to be very female. Unfortunately, conversely, he takes the men and they're kind of demasculate. They're emasculated, and I think almost every male character cried. Superman cries, Lex Luthor cries. They all weep in some way. But there's also stuff that's like the characters. Gunn is really good at groups of characters. You've got the Daily Planet group. That was one group of people that interact, right? You've got the one character played by Beck Bennett, who was the sports guy, lecturing Clark about the use of adverbs. That's very fun. Then you've got this other group, the Justice Gang, with, Guy Gardner was awesome. And Mr. Terrific, just great. Love that character. So Gunn is really good at.
Don't forget, you have the Lex group as well.
Then the Lex group, even the Lex group, and his sort of minions, his minions of sycophants, and all the things that were talked about on Reddit, the groups of monkeys, the hashtag, social media aspect. That stuff is all true. That, in many ways, I think is what's going to hurt this movie. This movie, while Man of Steel, I believe, has aged well by having a story that's timeless. This movie is far too rooted in present day social media, shame, politics, selfies. There's this politics of two warring countries that you could read into it as Palestine and Israel. It could be Ukraine and Russia, whatever. There's always some war going on, I guess. You could read into it. That was the least interesting part and got a lot of screen time. And so for everything I can say that I liked about the film, there's something that just didn't work. And it's so as a whole, look, if forced to give a number rating, I give it a 6 out of 10, which is a bare recommend. But I'll say this movie is going to kids, children, young boys, young girls are going to love this film. And I really think it will resonate with families. This is the Superman movie I think people had hoped Man of Steel would have been. Zack Snyder took a very serious approach, often dark, and even muted in the color. But, this movie will be talked about by fans in a way where that'll be like having a conversation at a comic book store, right? Where you would just nitpick everything, and this, I didn't like that, and this character. I mean, I love those conversations. So while the nitpicking, you could say is a bad thing, I'm glad that we're talking about nitpicky stuff like this rather than wokeness or gender or race swaps or whatnot. I think the one thing that I disliked the most was the emasculation of the male characters. While the women were allowed to be women, the men should have been able to shine. The movie didn't do that. 6 out of 10 for me, ultimately, in the end. And I want to see it again. Because I do feel like with a film that's like this, you need time to let it percolate. Yeah. And I'll end on this and hand it to you, Alan, and we'll go to comments. One thing that's missing is America. Truth, justice, the American way. In the press, you've seen this thing about an immigrant story, right? There's a reason that people from countries all over the world want to come to America. And just like the American flag, Superman as a character is iconic. He's a piece of Americana. And to back away from that, I think that that's a huge mistake. People are not flooding into America because they hate this country. They love what this country represents. And Superman is part of that. Next movie, they need to make a fix about the lore. I'll talk about that in our spoiler review. We won't mention that here. Lean into America. Superman is about America and the American dream and what can be achieved. And people from outside of America admire this country. Lean into that. And so it gets a bare recommend at a 6. I had a lot of fun with it. But for everything that I loved, I turn around and there'd be another problem. Alan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things. The America thing. I'll talk more about it in spoilers because I do want to address this.
Yeah.
But look, America was there just in the same way First Man had America in it as well. I actually had a good time. And I think a lot of it had to do with my same response with The Flash. All I know of Superman is the movies and the John Byrne run. Same thing with The Flash. I enjoyed it for what it was, for the action. I enjoyed this for what it was. I definitely had issues with it. There were things I wish had been done. But overall, I just had a good time. And to your comment about this is a kid's movie, I think you're right. I think this movie will appeal more to kids. It's almost as if James Gunn had taken some kids' toys, his Superman toys, all his action figures, his kaijus, and just threw it down and asked him, hey, let's play with these toys. Because that's what this movie was. There's so many superheroes in it. There's so many monsters in it that I think the appeal there is definitely for kids. One of the contrasts I'll make with this movie is I'll compare it to the Richard Donner Superman, the first one. In that one, there wasn't a lot of money, Hollywood budget wise speaking, it wasn't $100 million movie. Also, Robert talked about this on his show last night, but the whole verisimilitude, because there was no computer generated sequences, because everything was practical. Because it was mostly movie magic, you had to ground this movie into reality in order for us to believe that is Superman and he can actually fly. This one, ironically, is the exact opposite. James Gunn pretty much had an unlimited budget. He has at his disposal all the great special effects you possibly can. And I think he did away with verisimilitude and just threw in the kitchen sink of the DCU, which is the problem I had. I'm so used to Superman being just Superman and just a supervillain, and then you have Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. To me, that's kind of the movie I was hoping I was going to see, and I didn't get that. I got a movie that's grounded in the DC universe, which I know nothing about. Has all these characters. I have no idea why Mr. Terrific is called Mr. Terrific. I just don't know these characters. So I think I did enjoy the flashing images that were presented in front of me. I did enjoy the schoolboy, the Boy Scout Superman that was presented as well. But I think what really got me, look, I see a lot of these superhero films and I have the same complaints. It's just all action. At least this one had more to it than that. As much as we complain about the conversation with Clark and Lois, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the back and forth, just drilling down to this issue. Should Superman insert himself into political wars? In fact, Superman 4 was about that. Superman collected all the nuclear weapons on Earth and threw them into the sun. That is Superman interjecting himself into politics. And nobody saw that movie for the same reason, because they don't want that in their Superman. But to me, I'll end on this. To me, this is a science fiction movie. what I like about science fiction is more than just the action, more than just the robots, more than just space, but it's a discussion of humanity. And there were bits and pieces of that throughout this film that I enjoyed and found interesting. The conversation about Superman and war, conversation, this immigrant thing controversy that we'll talk about Friday. Um, and let's see. And then the whole Lex thing as well. So sorry, I got distracted for a second. This is, I'll say this. I did enjoy it, but it's definitely not a perfect movie. It's definitely not, didn't give me the feels that I got with Superman 1, which ironically I was 11 years old when that movie came out. But I had a good time. And so that's kind of my thoughts. I'm a little bit all
Well, do you recommend it, and do you have a number rating in your head yet?
Yeah, I have a 7.5. I do
Oh,
recommend.
you're even better. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll add one more thought
Mm-hmm.
to this. I think of myself when I saw the 1978 Superman. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was like 12, 13 years old.
I was 11.
I saw that movie. It blew my mind. It was the biggest movie that year. It was incredible. And I think of who I was. I was a kid seeing that movie. There are going to be kids that see this movie that this will leave the same kind of impression that Donner's Superman left on me. And a lot of people can't watch that movie now because the effects are cheesy, right? I like it for the performances and Christopher Reeve in that film, and Gene Hackman and Valerie Perrine. Don't get me started. But what I'm saying is, this is a movie for the low, short attention span, TikTok, Gen Z generation. It felt like, if there's one big flaw, I would say it's the pacing. It's this relentless. I mean, I felt like I was watching a recap video of season 1 of the Superman TV series on Max. I said that on social media. It feels like they condensed like 8 hours of content into like a 2-hour recap because so much happened.
Yeah, it's like riding a roller coaster over and over again with no breaks.
Right. That's what it felt like. And that could be a good thing and a bad thing. In a good sense, it'll get kids to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie. Movies have gotten too long these days. 2.5 hours, we complain about it. There's certain movies that earn a 3-hour running time or north of 2 hours, others that don't. This movie did not overstay its welcome, got in and out. It was over. It could have been longer. I think difficult to say that about many films these days. That should have been longer, but end,
it should have been longer in the sense that there needed to be longer breaks
and the other
time to catch your breath.
The other thing it didn't do, one final thought. The one thing it didn't do was, this is not a spoiler, like a post-credit scene that sets up the next thing that's going to happen. They didn't do that. There is a post-credit scene. We won't say what it is, but nothing that's like, oh no, this character, that happened to so-and-so. Nope. Standalone. You come in the middle of the story. It ends too soon. And I can't wait to see what Gunn does next. So while it's not an overly, there's as much I didn't like as I liked, which, why a 6 out of 10 for me. I don't think this movie will age well. I just don't think it will. Whereas Man of Steel has. I'm still giving it a bare recommend. You liked it more than me. And there you go, Alan.
Yeah, I'll just end on it. This is definitely a James Gunn movie. It's got his fingerprints all over it. And what I like about how he handled it was it's more like the world was a James Gunn world, and then you have Clark and Lois in the
right.
And, Clark and Lois are the straight person in this weird world. And I kind of like that.
Literally, they're the straight people.
Yeah. I mean, man, they were when they were making out, they were making out. I mean, literally, he could have poked a hole in her head with his tongue. By the way, they were making out. So I mean, I do. There are things. Yeah. I do like. Okay, so I'll end on this. I do like the fact that that there was a lot going on. What I didn't like, a lot of stuff that happens in the movie, the broader picture, the world, global things, are all said through discussions and talking. You don't see that, but at the same time, it really is about Clark and Lois. And I do like the fact that the movie starts with Superman being in a vulnerable position. He's losing. He is not Superman. He is Superman, but he is losing. And I do appreciate that. That's where James started, and that, to me, that's what makes this movie feel like a James Gunn movie.
Yeah.
He tells the story in his way and not in a traditional way.
And we can give our criticisms all we want. For the most part, the current Rotten Tomatoes score is, I believe, 86% critics, 96% audience, verified audience. Those scores will go down, but for the most part, people are really enjoying this movie. I don't think it's a home run. I think at best it's a double. You know, it's, but the box office remains to be seen. It's possible, with the appeal to families and kids, that this movie could do even better. The north of 700 million remains to be seen, and we will report on it.